California, a construction worker is trapped by yet another deadly act of nature, a firenado. The devastating twisting winds of a tornado can rip the roof off a house in seconds and demolish entire towns in minutes. But what happens when a tornado and fire unite? Sparks fly off the flat tire of an RV along a highway in Redding, California. They ignite the roadside brush. The ensuing blaze engulfs an area 3 times the size of Washington, D.C.
The car fire had been spreading for multiple days, but there was some concern that it was going to spread to the east with some stronger westerly winds, kind of downslope winds, into the northern part of the Central Valley near Redding.
That's Redding right there.
Terry Cummings is part of a team of heavy equipment operators tasked with carving a dirt trench around a subdivision of homes. The containment lines are 3 bulldozer blades wide and designed to halt the advance of the wildfire.
Fire is made up of heat, fuel, and oxygen. And what we're doing in a bulldozer is we're removing fuels from the ground by scraping it and pushing it out of the way or creating a break in the fuel. While we were cutting those lines, I'd been watching the fire. I was starting to get concerned because of how close it was getting. I didn't think it was going to escalate the way it did.
But the fire isn't the only thing crews need to worry about. The fire also receives a tornado rating.
With maximum winds of 143 miles per hour, it was rated as an EF3.
Terry has no idea a unique set of disastrous conditions is brewing.
We usually do our shift changes between 7 and 9. My relief was more novice, and I was watching the fire behavior, and I told him I was going to stay on for another hour or so to make sure everything was safe. I noticed fire catapult through the air, and I looked over to my right. All of a sudden, the fire was burning on the sides of these houses next to me. Within minutes, everything became fire. It was just like a shower of fire started happening all around us.
No one could have predicted what was about to happen next. One of the rarest natural disasters develops right before Terry's eyes. A firenado.
A firenado or a fire tornado is you have a fire-generated vortex that's rotating, and then it extends upward into a pyrocumulonimbus cloud. It's a fancy way of saying you have a tornado made of burnable material that's attached to a thunderstorm cloud.
When a cold pocket of air appears above an extremely hot fire, the heat rises quickly in the same fashion that a tornado forms. Gases drawn up into this column can ignite in the air.
Fire tornado is extremely dangerous because they are unpredictable. They can move rapidly, and they can spread fire quite rapidly as well, too.
In the blink of an eye, Terry and his crew are surrounded by fire.
It was within minutes. There was no start or no end of the fire, just everything was engulfed.
Being in the path of the firenado is a near hopeless situation.
With an EF3 rating for damage, that can debark trees, it can overturn train cars, it can destroy stories of well-built houses. And then you add a fire to that, is not only are you destroying structures with wind, but you're also burning these structures as well, too. If it's so hot that you can melt metal, and then you have winds of 140, 145 miles per hour, that's pretty much a worst-case scenario in terms of a weather event.
Terry has no clear way out. He's surrounded by fire, and his radio communication is failing. Unsure of his fate, Terry can only think of one thing, his girlfriend, Shalai.
I texted Shalai. I guess I just wanted to tell her I love her.
Just as Terry hits send on the text, the fire intensifies.
I looked up, seeing 2 vehicles. This big dust cloud just engulfed the rear vehicle, like he just disappeared. So I started to turn my dozer to deflect the debris. I didn't want it to break my window, but as soon as I started to turn, my window glass broke, and then all my glass around me broke. It was like I just got hit by a freight train. Then I was like blacked out and I just heard noise. I felt the tracks of the dozer on my left shin, and I reached out and caught the door jambs, and then I gasped for air.
Stuck in his bulldozer, surrounded by fire, and with winds over 230 kilometers an hour throwing debris at him like bullets, Terry switches to survival mode.
I threw myself into the seat, and I grabbed a bag and stuck it over my face. The winds that were hitting me, it was like a blowtorch. They were really, really strong and really, really fast. I was just screaming and holding on and just guarding my face with the bag. I was thinking, not like this, Lord.
The dire situation is exceptionally rare.
Fire tornadoes are extremely rare, with only the 2 instances recorded, one in 2003 in Canberra, Australia, and then the other one just outside of Reading. And with only 2 documented instances of fire tornadoes, there's not a whole lot to go on. But a fire whirl and a fire tornado are pretty similar. The main difference is usually size. Fire whirls are usually smaller, and they occur kind of on the edge of fires. Now, a fire tornado happens under a similar process, however, it's much larger. Fire is usually much more intense, and then the upper part of the atmosphere is usually more conducive for vertical motion and stretching. So a fire tornado and a pyrocumulonimbus is much more similar to a tornadic supercell than it is to a fire whirl.
In the maw of the storm, Terry is powerless.
So the tornado came down, hit me, lifted me, tumbled me over, dropped me. I could feel it engulfing my waist, my neck, face, ears, hands. It felt like my limbs were just melting. It felt like they were burning off. So I knew I was getting burned, but I didn't agree with it. And I'm like, no way.
In an adrenaline-fueled moment, Terry makes a break for safety.
I jumped out of the machine. I looked up and I saw 2 vehicle lights, and I made the decision to just make a run for it.
Somehow, he makes it through the blowing inferno to the vehicles.
I poured water over my hands, and then it was another, 20, 30 minutes, I guess, at least, before we escaped back out. It was a very unbearable pain in my hands, and just, I could feel it all around everywhere. But they got me to the ambulance.
Terry was one of the lucky ones.
That is unbelievable.
An EF3 tornado by itself is very strong and can cause severe damage. And then you couple it with a large, rapidly spreading wildfire, and the damage is pretty unbelievable. It was a half-mile wide at its widest, and also was on the ground for 2 miles.
There's 5 people that died. I think it was over 1,000 homes that were burned.
All the debris.
I feel blessed for sure. God was definitely present through it all.
Power line tower. That's crazy.
There's still no way of really predicting fire tornadoes. There's some scientists that are working diligently to produce forecasts for these, but still very early on in the process.